So it says the great masters who come rarely, alas, on earth do so in response not only to need, but to humanity's, sorry, consciousness of that need. So the great masters will only come when we call them, when we are aware that something is not right and that we need help. Before that, they will not come. If we are totally unaware, nobody from outside actually can make us change. The desire for change has to come from within. And only when that happens will the masters come. Once here, they try within the strictures of divine law to be of universal help. So what is within the strictures of divine law? There are certain laws which, nobody can get out of. So the masters will not come and just spoon feed us into evolution. There are certain laws which govern this evolutionary process. For example, the law of choice and consequence. So we have the free will. Masters will never interfere with that free will of making a choice and therefore the consequence. They will do, however, they will be around and they will keep giving you signs and symbols. They will try to move you in the direction of the right choice. But if you are not sensitive enough to pick up those signals which the masters are emitting, then you may well make a wrong choice. And therefore, the consequence would be to spiral towards, lower vibration rather than move towards the higher vibration, right? So they will stay within the universal laws of cause and effect, of choice and consequence, of that people have free will, and also they will remain within the strictures of karmic laws. If through lifetimes you have created a karma, then only you can release it, unless it is in certain specific circumstances that the guru just absolves you of your karma. Otherwise, you have to work it through and move forward. They are a guiding force. They will not do the work for you. So it is our own self-effort which will get us to the next level. So within the strictures of divine law, they will try to be of universal help. Paramahansa Yogananda, for instance, during his early years in Los Angeles, would sometimes walk up and down a street containing many bars and other places of iniquity. He said nothing, but clearly he was trying to influence any patrons of those places who were receptive to his spiritual vibration to change their way of life. So he used to just walk up and down that Los Angeles street with a lot of bars. He is not going in there and preaching and saying, thou shalt not, and you should do this. Nothing. He is simply emanating certain higher vibration. And anybody there who is able to pick it up will benefit. He can only send out the rays. The responsibility of tuning in into that and picking it up and wanting to change is ours. Normally, alas, what causes man to change his ways is suffering. So like I always say, unless we get a real kick in the backside, nobody likes to change. If everything is going well, then we will not even think of God, actually, if you ask me. We will just get involved in the drama of life and eating and drinking and making money, and all those things will occupy us. It is only when we reach a certain state in life where nothing else is working, we usually start to look for another way to get out of the suffering. And it is then that most people come into spirituality. I'm not saying all people, but most people. It is only when we have terrible illnesses, or we have terrible financial loss, or there is a death of a loved one and we don't know what to do with it, that is when we start realizing the value of a higher power, that all hope is not dead. There is still something or someone that we can move towards. Normally, alas, what causes man to change his ways is suffering. God doesn't want man to suffer. When one goes contrary, however, to the direction that leads to harmony, it is inevitable that he will experience disharmony. So we have free will to make our own choices, and those choices have their own consequence. So inharmonious choices will automatically lead us towards inharmonious consequences that nobody can stop. Only we can stop by changing our habit of making unhealthy choices. Hell, contrary to some popular beliefs, is not a place of permanent confinement. The biblical term everlasting hell is simply a myth, and probably a misconception either in the reporting or in the translation. The thing is, Yogananda said, hell seems everlasting. Such indeed is the nature of sorrow and suffering. The sufferer thinks nothing will ever improve for him again. Every state of consciousness creates a vritti or vortex which seeks to draw into itself whatever comes within its orbit. So, everlasting hell, according to Yogananda, we can always choose to change. That choice is always there for us. So nothing is everlasting. We need to make a conscious choice that we don't want any of this anymore and we are ready for change, right? Or so the nature of sorrow and suffering, the sufferer thinks nothing will ever improve for him again. Now, it seems because every moment of sorrow, as I was saying the other day, time is relative. When we are very unhappy, the time doesn't seem to move at all. Whereas when we are very joyful, it seems that it's over in a second. So when we start thinking that nothing is ever going to change for me, what is happening? So what is happening? Say this is a chakra on the astral spine, and I am thinking nothing is ever going to change for me, and I am going to suffer all the time. That very negative thought is spiraling here because the brain chemicals are all negative. And as we know, like energy attracts like. So the more we think nothing is ever going to change, the more similar circumstances we start attracting into our lives. And so this belief of mine that nothing is ever going to change starts becoming true. So the only way out of this is to change the thought. So thoughts are things, as we always say, when we change the thought, what starts spinning here is a good karma instead of a bad karma. And one good karma attracts another and another and another. So then our, what do you say, our circumstance changes. So this is what he's saying. The sufferer thinks nothing will ever improve for him again. Every state of consciousness creates a vritti. It's creating a vortex which seeks to draw to itself whatever comes within its orbit. So now it is bringing in all the negative things. Don't be fooled into thinking that because a state of consciousness or a way of behavior is common or even seems universal, it is therefore normal and right. To be in normal health is to be well physically. To be normal spiritually is to be out of delusion and fully aware of oneself as a child of God. Everything else is abnormal. So just because most people are not aware of God doesn't mean that that is the right thing or that is the normal thing. Actually, our normal self always remembers God. It is our abnormal self that has collected all these karmas and sheets of, delusion and all those things. So it is not normal to be suffering all the time. Actually, the normal state of being is a state of joy. But most of us are suffering all the time. Yeah, Himani.
So, Urmi, in a state where this the mind keeps throwing it back to you that okay, maybe this is a permanent state, or even after knowing that this is not permanent, it's a phase, it will pass. So, what is the best way to get out of it? Yeah, meditation, I know, but even in meditation,
Change
the
your
same,
thought.
yeah, the
You
but
have to catch
sometimes it get
yourself.
difficult.
Of course, it
Hmm.
is difficult, but that is the effort that you have to put in. That is the discipline. That every time I am thinking a negative thought, we are aware of it. If after being aware of it, we don't put in the effort to change, that
Hmm.
is even worse. Most of the time, people are not even aware of it. So they are thinking what they are thinking, and they think,
Hmm.
they are running life on autopilot. They think things happen to me. They don't take
Right.
responsibility. But for people like us who are hearing it day in and day out, who are on the spiritual path, who are doing meditation, if we don't have the discipline to change it, well, then the consequence of not changing it will also come to you. Then we
Right.
can't complain, because that
Right.
is a law of the universe, that
Hmm.
according to the choice you will make is what the consequence will come, right?
Right.
So that is the personal effort. It is not going to be handed to you. It is not going to be spoon fed. You yourself have to put the effort to change your thought. And why is it so difficult? Because the ego has got into a comfort zone of
Hmm.
thinking negatively. If you dig deeper, say a person is sick and not getting well, and the person knows that I have to change my thoughts, but the person is not doing it. The
Hmm.
next question you will ask the person, how does it serve you to remain sick? There must be a benefit to your ego. Otherwise, you would not remain sick. You will see that remaining ill is a way of escaping responsibility.
Right.
Maybe I have to get up and earn my living.
Hmm.
Maybe I have to get up and take responsibility about household duties. Maybe I have to tackle difficult people. Might as well remain ill in bed. These
Hmm.
are deep subconscious motivations. We don't necessarily consciously, we are not doing it. But deep down, there is a resistance to getting well. If there wasn't a resistance, I would be up. It doesn't take more than a second to get well from anything, I'm telling you. It is the karmic stuff which we are also carrying over lifetimes, which becomes very heavy. It has become a comfort zone. Over lifetimes, we have thought the same thing. And in a state of unhappiness, I know how to deal with it. In a state of happiness, I'll be ungrounded. I won't know how to deal with when everything is nice. So that is the fear of the ego, which will stop you from changing your thoughts in spite of knowing that thoughts are things. So if I give you an affirmation, you will say, Urmi, I forgot to say it. Who is forgetting?
Hmm.
Your subconscious is making you forget to repeat that affirmation. Because deep down, there is a 10-year-old Himani who has decided, I'm not going to listen to anybody. I'm a rebel. So that 10-year-old will come up and make you forget your affirmation. So that all these things make it very difficult.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
And why is the 10-year-old a rebel? Because it doesn't want to study. The benefit there is I can remain naughty. I don't have to sit down and study. So when my father or mother will scold me for getting 0 on 10, I will turn more rebellious. At the end of it, it is self-sabotage.
Right.
Because when I grow up, father and mother are no longer there, but my 0 on 10 has not allowed me to get a proper degree in a university, and now I don't have a job. So we don't understand. We are like children. That self-sabotage, what is self-sabotage? That is the ego.
Right.
Don't be fooled into thinking that because a state of consciousness is or a way of behavior is normal, it's actually right. The general state of consciousness is unhappiness, but that is not our normal state. Our normal state is to be joyful. But because we have forgotten it, we say, oh no, this is normal. To suffer is normal. And to believe in God and to do meditative practices is abnormal. But that its reverse is true. Lord prayed the Christian Saint Augustine, thou hast made us for thyself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in thee. So the whole thing of the spiritual path is we are just traveling back to our original selves, which is God. So Krishna is saying, know that all beings, both the pure and the impure, are born of this twofold Prakriti. What is the twofold Prakriti? It is the world of duality. Remember, I talked about Para Prakriti and Apara Prakriti. Para Prakriti is the higher vibration of duality. Apara Prakriti is the lower vibration. And twofold Prakriti, good, bad, happy, sad. I alone beget and dissolve the whole universe. So I alone am Brahma, who has created the universe. I alone am Shiva, who dissolves the universe. And Vishnu in the middle is the preserver. That is where nature has its play. O Arjuna, there is nothing above me, nor beyond me. Through all things, as through the gemstones of a necklace, runs the thread of my all unifying consciousness. As the thread is what supports and unites all the beads, so God's consciousness supports, sustains, and unites everything in creation. So if you look at this metaphor, so these are the beads of a necklace. So what Krishna is saying, I am the thread which is running and holding all these beads together. So what are the beads? Beads are the drama of life. This is all manifested creation. Complete drama, good, bad, hatred, suffering, happiness, joy, all these things are creation. And the consciousness of God runs through all of it. It is present within us. Where is it present? In our physical body? As we know, because we meditate, it is present in us in the spiritual eye. Within us only lies that still center, which is the Christ consciousness or the Krishna consciousness. O son of Kunti. Kunti represents the quality of dispassion. O son of Kunti, I am the fluidity of waters. I am the light of the moon and the sun. I am Pranava or Om in the teachings of the Vedas. I am the silent roar. I think this is, sorry. Hello. You'll open the door now. Well, at the gate. At the gate. So, O son of Kunti, I am the fluidity of waters. I am the light of the moon and the sun. I am Om in the teachings of the Vedas. I am the silent roar of cosmic sound in the ether. And I am the manhood in man. So Krishna is saying, I am everything. So I am the fluidity, I am all the vibrations, I am the sun and the moon, I am also the vibration of Om, and I am the subtle vibrations of space, the sound in the ether. I am the manhood in man. The manhood in man is basically the God self, the highest potential of man. What is a real man, as they say, or a woman for that matter? But it is that part of us which has the free will, which chooses whether to move towards source or away from source, the discriminating part of us. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, there are hidden as well as overt meanings. The fluidity of waters is a subtle reference to the vibratory motion of the elements, as which we've discussed above. We said now there are 5 elements of higher and higher vibrations. So it starts with earth, the grossest vibration, then it goes into water, then it goes into fire, then it goes into air, then it goes into ether. So slowly the vibrations are rising along with the chakras. So the root chakra is the earth vibration, the sacral chakra, water vibration, solar plexus, fire vibration, heart chakra, air vibration, throat and above is etheric vibration, highest vibration. The moon and sun refer to negative and positive polarities in the universe and also in man's body. So we speak of the Ida and Pingala nadis, right? So the Ida nadi at the inhale, that is the feminine part. The moon is governed by the moon. The Pingala nadi, the masculine part of us, which takes us out. At the exhale, we are going out into the world via our 5 senses. So that is known as the governed by the sun. So the sun and moon polarities, the masculine and feminine, are all within us. So the moon and the sun refer to negative and positive polarities in the universe. As in the universe, it is also there in our own bodies, and also in man's body. The pranava or om taught in the Vedas refers to the subtle inner sounds which emanate from the chakras. So pranava is actually the various the various vibrations, right, of the chakras. One moment, huh? Somebody from piano. Just keep it, keep it. Yeah. The pranava taught in the Vedas refers to the subtle inner sounds which emanate from the chakras. The sound in the ether is audible, though not to ordinary ears. So we can only hear the chakra sounds when we are deep in Om meditation, right? Normally we don't hear it. So those are astral sounds which we can hear when we go deep into meditation. The sound in the ether, the sound of the chakras is audible, though not to ordinary ears. Other traditions, notably the Greek, have described it as the music of the spheres. The manhood of man refers to the special attribute possessed by mankind among Earth's creatures, which enables him to advance spiritually by free will. So, manhood of man is just that ability, that free will. Only in man, only mankind has the frontal lobe. Animals have sloping foreheads. Only man has straight forehead. Animals don't have the frontal lobe. We have the frontal lobe. And in the frontal lobe, there is the spiritual eye, which is the center of discrimination. It is when the spiritual eye is open that we have a higher perspective on everything. It is then we can actually see truth from falsehood. What is it that will take me towards source and what is it that will take me away from source? So the presence of that capacity is the manhood of man to be able to evolve spiritually, consciously. Animals and all evolve all right. From anyway, we also, from crystals to plants to animals to man. But that happens kind of unconsciously. We reach the state of being a human that we can consciously decide whether we want to evolve or not. Otherwise, it's a natural progression. I am the wholesome fragrance of earth. I am the radiance of fire. I am the life of every creature. In holy ascetics, I am their austerity. So this is what Krishna is saying. As in the previous stanza, the reference here is subtle as well as overt. Earth and fire are the elements of two of the lower chakras. So he's saying wholesome fragrance of earth, which is the root chakra, and the root chakra actually governs the sense of smell. So that's why he talks of wholesome fragrance of earth. Each of the chakras are governed by one sense. So the root chakra is governed by the sense of smell. And it is divine vitality which vibrates in the air or anahata. So he now he talks about I am the radiance of fire. So fire here is the solar plexus chakra, which actually symbolizes our power of self-control. And the solar plexus chakra governs the eyes. So the sight. It is divine vitality which vibrates in the air or anahata, the heart chakra. Self-discipline emanates from the Kuthastha Chaitanya center between the eyebrows. So here is the seat of self-discipline, and ultimately from Sahasrara, the crown chakra at the top of the head. A magnetic polarity, as we have said earlier in this book, exists between the earth center, that is the Muladhara, and the heart or the Anahata center. By meditating on the heart center with support from fiery self-control, the quality of the lumbar or Manipura chakra, it is easier to raise the energy in the spine above the lower chakras. Now, because we meditate, I can say that when we do Navi Kriya, what are we doing? We are actually activating the solar plexus chakra to be able in meditation to bring up the energy to the heart chakra and therefore up. So by meditating on the heart center with support from fiery self-control, that is the Manipur center. So before meditating, we do Navi Kriya to bring up that support for the heart center. It is easier to raise the energy in the spine above the lower chakras. From Anahata, it is easier next to draw the energy upwards to the Kuthastha between the eyebrows, and thence to the highest chakra, the Sahasrara and cosmic consciousness. So we activate the solar plexus, which helps us to move the energy to the heart. We activate the heart, which helps us to move energy here, and from here it is here. And from here we can, this is the seat of super consciousness. This is the seat of cosmic consciousness. Super consciousness is one rung in the realization of cosmic consciousness, right? So once we have mastered this, this automatically opens. Know me, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, to be the seed of all creatures. I am intelligence in the discerning. In those who are glorious, I am their glory. Among the powerful, O best of the Bharatas, I am power without personal ambition and attachment. I am that sexual desire or kama in men which is in keeping with dharma or righteousness. So Krishna is saying, I am that power which is not personal, without personal ambition. So this is the kind of power which is true power, where you are not constantly wanting the power for yourself, where you are not wanting adulation, where you are not wanting control over others with the power. This kind of power is more universal. And if you are unattached to power, the power only grows 100-fold because it is impersonal power. So Krishna is saying that I am that impersonal power which can really make changes in the world. It is not ego driven. It is not motivated by the desire to control others. It simply is a power. And it is also, I am that sexual desire in men, which is in keeping with dharma or righteousness. So what is it? When we, sex is a very, very potent force in the universe. When we know how to use it, it can actually take you straight to divine union. So that kind of, again, unattached, that kind of sexual desire will actually enable you to move up into union with source. So that is what Krishna is saying, I am. Because desire is such a strong factor in the lives of human beings, it should be pointed out incidentally that good, that is to say dharmic desires, bring good results, but temporarily only. Desirelessness alone leads to liberation. So what is liberation? Liberation is liberation from constant births and rebirths and births and rebirths, being caught in the game lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So even though we may make dharmic choices, if we still have the ego motivation that I want to be happy, you may have good karma, but having good karma will give you a good life, all right, but it will not liberate you because you're still in the game of good and bad. Complete desirelessness, neither for good nor for bad, that I'm done with the drama. I'm not coming back here anymore. If I come back, I will come back as a master. That's a different issue altogether. But I don't want to come back lifetime after lifetime, because even if I generate good karma, I will have to come back in the next life to enjoy that. So there's no end to it. So if I want really the end, only then can I be liberated. So total desirelessness, not even the desire for good, just neutral. When we manage to become neutral, beyond good or bad, that is when we can be called liberated. Know that all manifestations of sattva, the elevating, rajas, the activating, and tamas, the darkening quality, emanate from me. They exist in me, though I am not apparent in them. So like the beads, and the divine consciousness is like a string that is going through the beads. So whether we are sattvic, that is at a higher vibration, or rajasic at a slightly lower vibration, or tamasic at a very stultifying, dark kind of vibration, through all this, the divine consciousness is running. It is not absent from any of it. But I am not apparent in them. What is the whole mm, process of the spiritual journey? It is removing the defense walls, the sheets upon sheets upon sheets which we have built through our lifetimes to reach our center, which is God. We are already God, but over lifetimes, we have got covered in so much muck. We have built so many walls that now we are totally disconnected from self, self with a capital S. From our soul quality, we have got disconnected. But it doesn't mean that the soul quality is not present. It is present. We have to keep unpeeling the layers. Meditation is a process of simply removing the muck so that we can connect to who we truly are. Paramahansa Yogananda often illustrated his lectures by comparing real life to the fantasy world of motion pictures. In a movie, he said, when discussing the above stanza, the same beam of light produces on the screen both good and evil people. They are only images of shadow and light. Although they seem real, they are in fact true only to sight and sound. So Yogananda said, just see life as a movie. Just like, we also get caught up in a movie, we start crying, we are laughing with the actors, we forget that this is just some kind of a shadow play going on in front of us. And it is good to look at the projector behind, which is impartially beaming this shadow thing. So the projector is like the light of God, which is simply bringing in front of us the drama of life. So they are only images of shadow and light. Although they seem real, they are in fact true only to sight and sound. That means they are only true to the senses. Senses, whatever they perceive, is false. Whatever we perceive through our five senses is Maya, which is delusion. Whatever we perceive when we go beyond our five senses through intuition, that is real, right? So, although they seem real, they are in fact only true to sight and sound, that is part of the five senses. The Cosmic Dream movie is true not only to two human senses of sight and sound, but to all five of them. This is in a movie hall. So Swamiji or Master used to say the cosmic movie is, perceived through all five senses that we have. And yet, just as the light emanating from the projection booth in a movie house produces mere images of reality, so also does God's light produce mere appearances. So this is the fact of Maya, this is Prakriti, this is the vibration of Om, which has manifested all this, right? And so this is mere appearance. It is not the nature of reality. Nature of reality is God, Satchidananda. The universe itself is only a projection of shadows and light. Everything is produced by God. More than merely showing a movie true to the five senses, he produces the script, directs the actions, plays all the parts, composes and plays all the music, and even provides the audience. So, Source or God, in a bid to experience itself, has created this. And so just like a playwright, Source projects villains and heroes and comedians and robbers and kings and princes. Source is projecting all this without necessarily becoming any of them, impartially projecting this drama. A playwright knows that actors portraying both good and evil are necessary to his story. Why? Because we learn only through contrast. In the 3D world, which is the world of relativity, it is not the world of absolutes, we need a contrast. We need a black to be able to understand the nature of white. We need a white to be able to understand that black exists. So in this 3D dimension, we need that drama, we need that contrast. So the playwright is in all of these characters in a sense, but they are not in him. In other words, they don't define him, just like God. God's creations don't define him. God is beyond all this. Similarly, a playwright may create all these characters, but they are not him, though he is in all of them. If he approaches his work with proper skill, he does so impersonally and rarely expresses personal feelings of his own, his likes, dislikes, social outrage, or prejudice. So the playwright does not come into a good playwright. He doesn't write autobiographical things. He can project himself into different situations. He himself need not possess any of the qualities possessed by his characters to express their natures. Were those characters actually living, they might not understand him at all. Yet he must live all their lives from a distance, as it were. He must enter even into the villain's consciousness or give him verisimilitude, to give him verisimilitude. So the playwright, even though he is not the villain, he has to really enter into the consciousness of the villain to give his villain any kind of substance, any kind of truth. He must view everything the villain does from the villain's point of view. He may even enjoy the villain's twisted self-justifications and must make them as believable and as seemingly reasonable as they would be to the villain himself. His enjoyment in writing that part is not sadism. He knows that the man's villainy will only make the conclusion of the story more beautiful. The tension he creates in delaying the action will bring the story to a more satisfying denouement. A disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda's once said to him, "I have such a deep longing for God. Why does it take so long for him to come?" "Ah," the master replied with a blissful smile, "that's what makes it all the sweeter when he does come." So there is a divine romance between the devotee and God. So that is why the drama is extended and expanded and made more and more dramatic, so that the ending is more beautiful, more touching, so that the true nature of God becomes clearer and clearer to us. When the English novelist Charles Dickens was writing his famous tale, The Old Curiosity Shop, he realized at a certain point that it would be necessary to the integrity of his story for little Nell, his main character, to die. It is said that when this understanding came to him, he walked the streets of London for hours weeping. Yet he had no artistic choice but to kill her. Otherwise, he would have been untrue to his own storyline. God, Yogananda said, also weeps for mankind for man's follies and sufferings. Now, just like a playwright or like Charles Dickens, he only has created the character Little Nell. And now, because he has a truth to say in the story, that truth demands that Little Nell has to die in the story. So Charles Dickens is suffering and suffering because if I am to remain true to the truth that I am serving through the story, Then little Nell, there is no option, but she has to die. But which doesn't mean that Charles Dickens didn't feel sad about it. He didn't suffer for it. Similarly, God also suffers and weeps for mankind when we go through our messes, because God has written the story. And so for the story to reach its natural conclusion in an universal truth, this kind of suffering is often necessary, which doesn't mean that God is a sadist and sitting there and laughing and at us. He is equally, compassionate about it. He is equally weeping with us, but it is necessary for the suffering for us to learn the lesson. Otherwise, it is like, everything handed on a platter, then we don't appreciate the goodness of things. It is only when we work hard and we achieve something that that achievement becomes more meaningful. You will see spoiled kids. If they get too much without working for it, they don't value it. Nobody values it. Anything that they get for free or anything which comes too easy, we don't value it. Such is what human nature is like. Rarely we take everything so for granted that we will rarely have gratitude. How many of us have gratitude for the sun that is shining every day? Because it is free, we take it for granted. We don't even realize the value of sunshine in our lives. So it's like that. And so ultimately, unless we suffer, we somehow don't seem to realize the truth or realize the value of anything. So through that suffering, God is with us. He is suffering with us, but he cannot take away the suffering, because then that truth which he is trying to get into our heads will not be realized. So he weeps for human wickedness also, for though it produces grief for the recipients of wickedness, it produces even more grief in time for the wicked themselves. So anyone who perpetrates any sin, the kind may not happen in one lifetime, but if he keeps repeating it by sheer attracting the same thing every life through energy, a time will come when that guilt will be so overwhelming that it will be far worse. He will go down in his own eyes. Self-esteem will be zero. Self-blame, the pain of self-rejection and the pain of guilt will be far, far more than of any victim that he has killed off. They have suffered 5 minutes when the knife went into them, then they are dead. But this person will have even worse. They will suffer lifetime after lifetime, right? So he weeps for human wickedness also, for though it produces grief for the recipients of wickedness, that is the victims, it produces even more grief in time for the wicked themselves. Yet the Lord lets his show go on. He created it without any sense of personal involvement. The drama of every individual's life must work its slow way by however winding a road to its eventual inevitable conclusion, that is reabsorption in the bliss of Satchidananda. So if God has created the world in order to realize himself by understanding who he is not, and then he has created the world of black and white, good and evil, it is necessary for the soul to go through the dark to understand the light, and then through more and more evolution to realize that there is no dark and there is no light. It is just as it is, neutral. It is a field of possibilities. It is Satchidananda. God is conscious of every thought, every flicker of feeling, in every single one of his creatures, yet he stands apart from it. So I think we'll end here. It is 5 already. Okay. So let's end here with a prayer and see you next time.